Well, here we are at the end of episode 3, ladies and gents. Now, before, when I did the first and second investigation segments, I did them in two parts. First part was me theorizing, and second part was me expressing how I felt about the episode, what I liked and what I didn't like, that sort of stuff. Well, this time I'm gonna do it in a different order. This first part will be me just telling you how I felt about this episode, and in the second part I'm gonna start theorizing and all. So, yep, let's get started by saying that I really liked this episode. Now, it would probably take some more time for me to analyze and determine what episode thus far has been the best, analytically speaking, either episode 1, 2, or 3. But on a personal and very simple level, episode 3 sure felt like it was my favorite thus far. First off, many new characters have been introduced in this one. Virgilia, Ronoe, the 7 Stakes, which some of them showed up in episode 2, but for the most part, they have been hidden. And now the game showed them all, and they had their moments here and there. Like, we also have Evatris, we have the Cheester sisters, and now Angie showed up here at the end. Which the game is trying to be a little secretive about who this mysterious girl is, but it's Angie. It makes sense that it is Angie. I really like this, because in episode 2, when it comes to the whole battle of magic versus human tricks, it was mostly between Battler and Beatrice, and it makes sense for the game to introduce new characters to take part in the debates. Otherwise, having only Battler and Beatrice for the future episodes, it wouldn't have been as awesome. And speaking of the debates, they were just great. I mean, ever since episode 1, the game had its little Danganronpa / Ace Attorney moments where the protagonist tries to solve the mystery and brings in new possibilities that turns the table, while awesome music is being played. Like in episode 1 when Natsui and Eva were fighting each other, and Natsui was being accused of Kinzo's murder. But Battler comes in with the possibility that it was not her. Episode 2 had the introduction of the Red Truth, with the key and the envelope moment, which was also awesome. But I gotta give full points to episode 3, cause when it comes to those kinds of moments, the 6th locked room's murder and the cigarette butt moment were my personal favorites when it comes to that Danganronpa / Ace Attorney feel of defeating the opponent who originally had the upper hand, but afterwards is all "Damn you, Batora!" But of course, despite all that, we didn't really win all the way. Like, not only do we still need to figure out the 6th locked room murder like a little more, like what really happened and who is responsible and all that, but, well, a red web of truth also happened, which was very interesting. Like, it is surely challenging to try and pierce this red web. I mean, when Evatris was giving us more and more red truths, the possibilities that I had in mind for what happened, like, kept dwindling more and more. Like, I thought maybe Jiska did it. I thought maybe Nanjo committed suicide, maybe. But, no. The more Evatris kept talking, the more I was... I mean, she surely shook me up, like, real good. Like, at the time, it didn't feel like I could come up with, like, any new ideas. Like, I was in a similar situation of Battler. So, I guess now that the episode ended, it is time to slowly try and pierce the red web and figure out the absolute truth behind everything as I'll progress through the next episodes. I mean, ever since I premiered the ending of episode 3, I kept thinking about the red web and what possibilities I could come up. And did I come up with any solution? Well, we will get to that in part 2 of this video. So yeah, this episode had quite the twists and turns and lots of over-the-top moments from what I noticed. I mean, first of all, we had that battle between Beatrice and Virgilia, which was quite the spectacle. Like, I didn't think the Umineko would reach that level of having magic battles and such. I mean, up until that point, the first place was occupied by Rosa fighting the demons at the end of episode 2. I mean, she was struggling, but goddamn, she managed to kill those demons.
A pencil. I know, I've heard the story, sir.
Fucking pencil! Who the fuck can do that?
Technically, it was a fountain pen, from what I remember, but still, it was quite something, not gonna lie. Besides that, we had the twist of Eva finding a gold as well. Like, I didn't think we were gonna reach this kind of moment till much later in Umineko, but nope, somebody already found the gold. And it made me question at the time, like, what this could mean in the grand scheme of things. And afterwards, Beatrice became the new Golden Witch. She became our new opponent. And I was like, wait, what? And then Beatrice was questioning her ways and how she felt regret, and even helped us against Beatrice, and even won against her. Only for us to have that final twist at the end where Beatrice and Virgilia betrayed us. Which, again, that will be for the second part of this video. But yeah, quite a lot of twists and turns in this, in comparison to the other episodes. Like that, this was surely something. I really like this. We also had that bit at the end, like at the tea party with Lambda Delta, who not only does she sense that Beatrice is not quite following the original plan of the game, but also apparently has quite the upper hand on her, and gives off the air of a higher superior, which really didn't seem that way before. Like before, I thought of Beatrice, Berncastel, and Lambda as this trio of witches with equal experience, like fighting each other, but apparently it is as if Beatrice, while she herself is a powerful witch, is also one who is at the highest risk of being eaten by Lambda and Burn. Like, if she starts losing her balance, like even a second. If Beatrice loses the battle, not only will Berncastel achieve victory and have power over her, but Lambda is gonna punish her for not reaching up to her standards. So that's quite something. Actually, now I'm remembering this. Like, wasn't it that Berncastel told us in episode 2 how she was also tortured by Lambda in her own games? And it is because of that she became a witch as well? I mean, if we are to look at all this, it does seem as if Lambda is the most powerful witch, or at the very least, has the most powerful leash on both Berncastel and Beatrice at this point. Like, she is definitely not to be fucked with, from what I'm seeing here. And speaking of one not to be fucked with so easily, you have Beatrice here, who... did she prove to be a competent evil witch while still being freshly baked from the oven. Like, she does not hold back in the cruelty of her magic murders, and she definitely proved to be a challenge in the witch's trial. Now, when it comes to her web of truth, as I said before, the more evidence one has, the closer one may be to the absolute truth. So while she may have cornered us with her red web at the time, I do feel like with the right evidence and mentality, one could find a loophole and break through the web. It's just that at the time, we couldn't. And it feels like once you find the answer, then it is a huge deal. Like, maybe it leads us to the grand revelation of the mystery behind Rokkenjima, to the entire mystery. I mean, yeah, there is a reason why Beatrice decided to tell everything about the mystery behind Rokkenjima in red at the end, just so that she can stop Beatrice. Otherwise, it was impossible to break. So yeah, it very well can be that the answer to the red web is the answer to everything. Granted, I can definitely imagine that the answer is a very complex one and needs a lot of details to be figured out. It's not just about us mentioning a possibility, like we still need to explain every mystery behind Rokkenjima. However, when you take this into account, and what can be seen as an ultimate attack coming from Evatris, it can also be seen as a very risky and desperate attack. So yeah, there's that. Also, Evatris herself, she clearly feels like she represents the darker side of Eva, like a culmination of hatred and dark desires after all the years of pain Eva endured in the family. Like, the way Eva and Evatris talk to each other almost feels like the angel and the demon on shoulders situation, like having like an inner conflict, whether you should listen to the dark voice at the back of your mind or stand up to it and stay true to your morals and principles. Like, it is definitely interesting. And now let's talk about the new addition to the big roster of fighting game characters, Angie herself. Which, again, there is no doubt that it is Angie, like Balor's sister-in-law. Now, we also know from Beatrice that apparently she was sent here by Bern Castell to fight on the human side. I mean, we know that Burn wants Balor and the reader, aka me, to think of the mystery and win against Beatrice, because obviously Bern herself wants to win against Beatrice and take the reins. That would be the main reason. But I guess now we can include Angie to the mix as well. Maybe she can help. But the thing that I'm still questioning to this point is, if she is Angie, then how come she looks like a teenager? Since Battler said before that Angie was 6, like back at the parlor. Like, what happened? Did she come from the future? Is she like me, where years passed and she tries to solve the mystery behind what happened on Rokkenjima, and she came back to 1986? Like, is that it? Cause before, the games have given the impression that everyone in the family died and there was nothing left of the Ushiro name. Except for whenever Angie was mentioned, either by Balor or Kirie. Like, I think it was also mentioned in episode 1 at some point. Something about how Angie was sick and she couldn't go to the family conference. Like, I feel like I'm vaguely remembering that being the case. I don't know, you can correct me on that one. But yeah, if this is the case, then that would imply that Angie was the only member of the family who was still alive after the Rokkenjima massacre, and lived years and years without his brother and parents. In which case, yeah, there is definitely a motive there for why Angie would want to find out what happened. So yeah, I am curious about Angie, and maybe we will find out more about her, like, in the next episode, because I would also like to mention that I'm sort of noticing a pattern here, maybe? Like, I don't know. Episode 1 did feel like the spotlight was on Nazi for quite a bit. Episode 2 was Rosa, and episode 3 was Eva. So I guess if we are to go with the next Mother of the Year award, maybe episode 4 will focus on Kirie. And thus we're gonna learn more about Balor's family. Like what happened between Kirie and Asumu. Like, learn about Angie, learn about Asumu's death, and how it impacted Balor and Angie, like all that stuff. Another topic is that the Chister sisters. And there ain't much to say about them other than that they are fun characters. I mean, alongside them being incredibly overpowered with their attacks in comparison to the stakes, and making them quite threatening. But at the same time, they are such a contrast to the seriousness of the moment. I mean, look at them. Girls with bunny ears, talking like soldiers/robots, with quirky personalities, cutting through their victims like Swiss cheese. They are definitely something, and I would love to see more of them in the future episodes, which we definitely will, I'm sure. Now, when it comes to the adults, I did notice that it focused less on the servants and more on the adults this time, whereas in the other episodes, it was mostly more about the servants than the adults. But here we had more of the adults and such, and it was surely interesting. Like, we seen more of Rosa and how she feels about Beatrice with her childhood trauma and all of that. And I think I also talked about this over the course of episode 3. Like, I mentioned at some point that, wait a minute, I thought that I didn't see Rosa being knowledgeable about Beatrice in episode 2. And here we have a moment where Rosa, in her childhood, talked to Beatrice, and she knew her. But I guess it's because of some repressed memory and such, so that is an explanation for that. We also seen more of Kraus, which, again, we seen him at his most vulnerable and feeling regret and such when he was talking with Natsuki. And I don't know, at this point I'm starting to question, because when I see Kraus and Natsuki in episode 2 and episode 3, there doesn't seem like to be like any problem between the two. Like, they talk to each other as if, well, they are husband and wife with no problems. It's just that in the first episode, it gave me the impression that Kraus was being a jackass and such, and a misogynist against Natsuki, reason why Natsuki would feel so betrayed and such. But in episode 2 and 3, Kraus definitely felt a lot more nice than this. It's really weird. And also Kirie, my god. That moment with Kirie and Rudolph in the mansion fighting the stakes was quite something, especially coming from Kirie, because I didn't expect that kind of envy coming from Kirie. She was definitely hiding quite the powerful sin in her, to the point of even defeating the sister of envy herself. That's definitely quite something, and we know that the reason for that is because of Asumu and all that. That there was definitely some rivalry between Kirie and Asumu in that department. Like, even after death, Kirie has envy for Asumu and all that, which is definitely something. Now, when it comes to that, I feel like it is a matter of perspective. From the way Kirie talked about Asumu, it definitely felt like Asumu was the bad person in this. And Kirie finally got her reward of marrying Rudolph. But who knows, maybe Kirie is the bad person in this, and Asumu was innocent. Like, I don't know, it kind of depends who is the bad person in this aspect. Like, yeah, you can see Kirie talk badly about Asumu and all that, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess we will have to see in the future once we learn more about Asumu and about, like, in general about Balor's family and its history and all that. And Eva was quite an interesting character. Like, episode 3 focused a lot on Eva in this, which was nice. We surely seen quite a lot of her struggles, but at the same time the concentrated dark side in her. Her struggling with the gold and the headship and all that. And once she finds that, it's all she thinks about. To the point where it makes me remember about the possibilities, how I thought of how Eva maybe killed George and Hideyoshi. Like, the thought of finding the gold reached up to her head like so much, it made her like insane, and she ended up killing George and Hideyoshi, even though initially she didn't want to. It is definitely quite something. So yeah, there's that. And well, I guess that covers all the topics for the first parts.
Nope.
Like, a bunch of you goofballs have also sent me a couple of questions on Discord, and I have chosen to answer the essential ones here, like in this mini Umineko Q&A session. So let's get to it. Is the chapel scene from episode 2 a result of Haachama's cooking? Yes. Lo and behold, Haachama is secretly a cooking witch, and she uses spiders in her food to devour people's stomachs from the inside. Which bunny do you prefer both design-wise and in how they act? I mean, this is a toughie, because I like both of them. Like, in design-wise and how they act, but I think I'm gonna go with Chister 410. Like, both design-wise and how devious she acts. Like, in a fun way. Plus, she says "yeah" from time to time. Like, you cannot go wrong with that. Is Ronoe gay or European? Oh my. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he's both. Like, maybe that's the reason he's the only male that we've seen thus far on the witch's side. Also, this reminds me of that one episode in Seinfeld with the purse. What other goetic demons would you like to see? Like I did mention before how I want to encounter Gob, since he was mentioned by Maria, and my theory that maybe he's disguising himself as Nanjo, but let's be real, I think the best thing would be for us to see Salos, the 19th demon. I mean, come on, he's riding a crocodile! Also, that has to be a dwarf too. I mean, it looks like Gimli is having his fair share of fun. What kind of powers / furniture would you have if you were a witch? Like in terms of power, I want to be able to summon floating skeleton hands to punch people in the face. Like Katakuri's ability in One Piece. And I also want to have like a couple of elemental magic, like being able to control fire and being able to control water, like an avatar. And when it comes to furniture, obviously, the Chisto sisters. I mean, come on. It makes sense for someone like me. Stakes of Purgatory or Chisto sisters? Definitely Chisto sisters. Who do you find to be the most fearsome witch between Evatris, Beatrice, Berncastel, and Lambda Delta? Well, Berncastel and Lambda Delta, we haven't seen much of them other than when we had the tea party and, at the ceremony when Evatris became the new Golden Witch. I can definitely say that Beatrice is fearsome in the sense that she is definitely a very experienced evil witch who knows the ways of making someone suffer and all that. Whereas Evatris is fearsome, but in a totally different way, in the sense that she's like a child that has control of so many powers, and she has quite the imagination, so she can probably think of the cruelest possible ways one can be murdered. And also in the funnest way too, in that sense, because she is a child as well. And as I said before, Evatris is also a combination of many years of when Eva was suffering because of her family and all that. So that adds to how fearsome Evatris can be because of the sense of revenge and how feel it good to be the one on the top finally after all these years of Eva being the one at the bottom suffering and all that. But at the same time, I know that you can definitely tell that Beatrice had quite a dark history. It's just that we haven't seen it fully yet. Like, we've seen glimpses of it here and there, and moments where she definitely felt some emotions. Most definitely because of her history with Kenzo and such, which we definitely have to see some as well. So she definitely suffered as well. And it's because Beatrice suffered in the past that she is this cruel witch. So yeah, it is somewhat between Beatrice and Evatris. Whether we're talking about an evil witch with experience in knowing how to make you suffer in the most cruelest way, or Evatris who knows how to make you suffer through the most ingenious ways possible and such, in a physical sense. Beatrice is more, I can definitely see Beatrice as the witch that makes you suffer in the emotional way, whereas Evatris will make you suffer in the most physical way possible. So I would definitely say that that place would have to be for Beatrice, because emotional pain to me is definitely a lot more powerful than yeah, physical pain in my eyes, especially when it comes to a game like Umineko where it is about emotions and such. So I'm definitely gonna have to go with Beatrice on that one. Wow, that was a huge answer. Okay, expectations for episode 4. More focus on Kirie, more focus on Battler's family in general, its history and the relationship between the family members. More Ben Castel and Lambda, because I do feel like they're having more influence more and more as the games progress, and they're gonna influence the game more. So I definitely want to see more of them in action finally. Characters that interested you the most this chapter, and how did this chapter change your view of some of the cast? I think that the biggest spotlight for that one would definitely have to be on Beatrice, you know. I mean, of course, there's also Eva and other characters, but with the biggest spotlight being on Beatrice, it kind of makes you question how you view the human characters and the witches and such. I mean, you can see the difference between Beatrice in episode 3 and Beatrice in episode 2. Like, Beatrice in episode 2, it surely focused on her being viewed as this villainous, cruel witch that did so many horrible things to the humans, whereas in episode 3, it had this redemption arc for Beatrice. But in the same episode, we had Kirie, who was fighting Leviathan, and big revelation, apparently Kirie has this huge envy built inside of her, almost to the point of almost making you see her as a bad person as well, making you think of the possibility that she's fucked up like Eva and Rosa and other characters who were influenced by Kenzo and such. It's almost as if there is this feeling in the back of your mind that makes you view things in a different way when it comes to what your original perception is of the characters. Like, you usually think originally and usually you think humans are good, witches are bad. And we've seen how some of the humans can be seen as morally bad even from episode 1 and such. But why do I get the feeling that Umineko is trying to build up to this revelation of how you should feel more sympathetic towards witches more than you should for humans? That I won't say that you should lose your hope on the humans, but I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that I feel like Umineko is gonna try to pull some punches on you or pull the rug out of you when it comes to how you originally view some of the characters. Like, you really do not think of Kirie as a bad person. You mostly thought of Kirie as this innocent and very smart person with her head on her shoulders, when in actuality, if she has this built up envy towards Asumu to the point where it makes you think that, hey, maybe Kirie actually killed Asumu in some twist. If it makes you think of that, then same thing can happen with someone like Natsu. Same thing can happen with Kanon. Same thing can happen with Shannon. And normally you wouldn't really think of that, based on what we have seen of Natsu, Shannon, and Kanon. You usually think of them as good people, because of what they have gone through. But with the inclusion of the Braun Tube, it certainly makes you question how you view some of the characters. Like, I've mentioned that as well before, and I don't know.
There are 18 humans. Everyone has a perfect alibi. And yet the human did it. This must be really difficult for you. You still cannot figure out the red web, can you? Look at you. You've been silently sitting there, thinking for hours and hours on end, with nothing to show for it. You've landed on the moon before, but now it is impossible for you to reach Neptune. You've tried the obvious possibilities for the red web, but are not able to pierce it. You've made progress with the epitaph, but still cannot find the gold. The boron tube is making things more confusing, and you've been betrayed by Beatrice and Virgilia after having so much faith in them. You just cannot win.
You are like a brain tumor. Always happen.
Well, no need to speak so harshly about someone who's just telling the truth. Listen, you and me, we both have gone through this numerous times. You are confronted with a difficult obstacle. I am the voice of reason, telling you how incompetent you are. That your head whistles in a crosswind. Batteries not included.
What's your point, Nefarious?
My point is that this time, I'm gonna do the same thing. But there is a difference. It is definitely no fun if you just stop thinking and give up this early on. 'Cause true suffering has yet to begin. So until you find something for us to have a debate, then we cannot progress. And you certainly do not want that. This right here, what you're trying to do here, is all you have. If you do not prove yourself competent to solve mysteries, you feel worthless. So get to it, Bone Man. Show me what you got.
I got nothing.
In which case, how about...
Nope, wait. I think I have something. Magic is powered by belief.
And?
Thus, the magic claims are powered by one's belief, or disposition to believing in magic. I think that is what human Beatrice's inclusion in the second game is telling us. So if we are to see a moment from someone's perspective who believes in magic, then that moment is a magic claim!
Whoa! I am speechless. I am without speech. So you're saying that whoever you follow and see the action from that person's perspective, it is a magic claim if they believe in magic?
Yes.
How can he be so sure that is always the case?
Don't know if it's always the case yet, but it is certainly possible. I mean, after all these years, the humans surely have been influenced by Kinzo in believing the existence of Beatrice and magic, or at the very least, be open to it. Except for Balor, the one inside Rokenjima who is not a believer in magic. So whatever he sees and experiences must be of the human claim.
Objection! Then how do you explain Badler himself? He doesn't believe in magic, and yet he saw human Beatrice and the events at the banquet plain as day, just like anyone else.
Because at the time, he also gave up and started believing in magic too, because of everything that happened. With the exception of the banquet, there has never been a situation where Balor has been a witness to any magic event. So, in human claims, for someone who does not believe in magic, human Beatrice does not exist. It helps me in reaffirming that there are only 18 humans on the island, not 19.
Well, it has been confirmed in Red that there can only be 18 humans on the island. But no matter what you think of the Bronze Tube, you still have to deduce who the human killer is among them. You cannot do that so easily when the red web is in your way.
True enough. But here's how I'm going to counteract, Nefarious.
Nani? Pray do tell. What are you gonna attack the red web with?
The red paint.
Eh?
No matter what possibilities one may build over the course of these 3 games when it comes to who the murderer is, one common thing going on for all of them is the magic circles that keep appearing each time. This is telling me that not only does our killer have access to red paint prior to each of these games, but their common goal in regards to how they use these must be always the same, whatever that goal is. There have been a number of suspicious people in the first game, and we never figured out who put those magic circles. Rosa was suspected of murder in the second game, but no matter how much one suspects her, I cannot for the life of me figure out why she would focus on magic circles on top of it. Same thing can be said about Eva. So in similar fashion to how I thought of Rosa being in cahoots with the secret killer in the second game, I'm gonna do the same thing with Eva in the third game. Someone else is killing people in the shadows and is putting those magic circles. A common human murderer in all these 3 games.
Certainly is possible. But the big question is, who that killer is among the 18? Since you're mentioning the possibility of Eva being in cahoots with the secret killer, it makes sense since there is no way Eva was responsible for Nanjo's death because of the red web. So who is the secret murderer among the 18?
It is none of the 18.
What?
It is none of them. Or at least, not in the way one normally thinks. Someone is not who they seem to be. Someone who is impersonating an already dead human.
Wait, what? Don't be an idiot. All humans have been accounted for by Evatris. What you're saying is that there is a 19th person, which is impossible. You said it yourself.
Not really. Beatrice stated in red before the third game that there are no more than 18 humans on this island. If someone kills one of the 18 humans before the game and impersonates them, there are still only 18 humans on the island.
Objection! Oi, don't be losing your marbles here. Evatris clearly said—
She said that 15 people have died. It very well can be that our hidden murderer displayed the body of the already dead person they impersonated to hide in the shadows afterwards. Let's take for example Gora. If Evatris says that he's dead, it could also mean that he died before the game started, and someone's secret replaces him to take the 18th spot, while also not being accounted for in the red web. They used the body of the original human and put it in place to make us think Gora died during the game and not before. So when someone uses the body like that, if Red Truth says that a person is dead, it is still true, but the imposter is still alive even if before they were impersonating Gora. Nobody ever confirmed in red that all deaths happened during the game.
So what you're trying to say is that a dead body no longer counts as one of the 18. That a dead human is no longer considered a human, but an object. That is quite cold coming from you.
The question of whether a dead body is considered a person or an object has always been a difficult one to answer. From a certain aspect, a dead body is the remains of what has left the world of the living. The vessel for what truly makes one human, its soul. In that sense, yes, I am going with that perspective. A dead body is no longer a human if what makes it human left the island.
I see. So you're going with the theory of an imposter, that someone is not who they seem to be. Then pray do tell, how is that even possible? You can pull that kind of crap in the killing games or anywhere else. But here we're talking about a family with years of history. People who have known each other for years. You think that someone would be able to figure out if one is impersonating someone or not?
Unless others are already aware of someone impersonating an already dead person. Not to mention that from Battler's perspective, he hasn't seen the rest of his family for 6 years. So things might have changed in between then and now. I mean, there's also the possibility of our culprit having access to some device that can make them switch between bodies and kill people that way.
Fine then. If this is how you're gonna tackle the mystery, then who am I to complain? It will be all worth it once you find out what the actual truth is behind everything. Whether you're right or wrong.
I may be wrong. I am not 100% confident in anything I'm saying here. You may think that I'm incompetent, and I may not be as smart as I'd want to be. But I was not born yesterday, Nefarious. The fact that I'm still coming up with new possibilities should tell you that I'm still fighting, whether I am right or wrong. So bring it on, try me.
Alright, then let's put it to the test. If you think there is some hidden culprit, then let's rewind ourselves back to the first game and see how you can handle it. But mark my words, there won't be any miracles this time. Reality will hit you in the head, and there will be nothing you can do about it. Noby Grando!
Nefarious!